Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, today's video was a fun one. Today we're going to be painting and weathering the already built 1/16 scale Sturmgeschütz. This is a beautiful kit, and now we get to weather and paint it all up. And as you can see, I've already finished it all here. But I have to say, I think it's more fun to weather in 16 scale than even in 35th. There's so much more detail that you can put into this. So this video is going to be a step-by-step of how we did the painting, the weathering, the mud effect, the rust effect on all the track, all that kind of stuff in there. Also, stay tuned to the very end of the video because I just received in a whole bunch of new aftermarket accessories that are going to be available for this kit that I will show you at the very end once we're done painting all this stuff. So, let's get started. Okay, before we jump into the painting, on the last video, a few people commented that it was very hard to see the detail on the fenders and whether or not they actually had detail on the fenders. And I'm just giving you guys a close-up right now. It does have detail on the fenders. So let's start the painting. We now have the camouflage on over our original paint job. We've also gone ahead and sealed the entire tank in TS80 flat clear. That lacquer protection will help us when we go to put the chipping and all the other weathering on. Now for decals, since those are next, we are going to be doing Gross Deutschland, Kursk, July 1943. That's how we've kind of patterned the camo after. So we will go ahead. It's not too many decals, it's just a matter of putting on the national insignia and then the white helmet on the front, back, and sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, the decals are now on and the clear coat has been reapplied to seal them in. Now I'm just taking my original base color, the XF88, on a very, very fine Tamiya brush. We're going to just put a couple of little chips on any of the areas that would be green. And you can make some of the ones a little bit bigger, however you want to make it, but I'll show you. We want to put this down first before we put our chipping color, and that'll show some of the bigger chips that went through the green paint right on through into the dark yellow paint. Now with the dark yellow chips dried, we can go ahead and use Ammo by MiG 0044, their chipping color. Really like this color now that I've been able to get it again. We're going to use just a torn piece of sponge, lightly dipped into the paint, and then maybe you can see right on the edge of the camera here, we're going to blot most of it off, quite a bit off, on either a paper towel or something like that. And then we can just go in, start tapping anywhere we want to put chips. Especially over those areas where we just put the dark yellow. Now that we have the track assembled, I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to do the painting and weathering on this. Now, as you can see here, we've got the long section of track. That is going to be the actual track itself on the vehicle. And then we've got these shorter pieces here that have a little bit more weathering on them, a little bit more corrosion, touch of rust on it. And this is from the armor track. And what I mean by armor track is these are the sections of track that are going to be laid all over the top of the vehicle or on the side of the vehicle as extra armor protection. And because they're not actually run through the ground like the regular track are, they're going to have a little bit more corrosion on them. And I will show you with these little sections of track how we first start off getting the regular track color that we can use on the actual kit itself, and then by adding a few more pigments like rust and things like that, we can get it to more of the armor piece. So we're going to start off with these two right here. First thing we're going to do is spray these with NATO black. Next up, we're going to use Ammo by MIG's chipping color, an acrylic color. And this we're just going to take an old beat up brush. The older the better, the more with the bristles all smeared out. Daub a little bit on there, blot a little bit off, and then just go over blotting, giving it most coverage, but leaving a little bit of the black behind in the shadows and the cracks. And we're going to go ahead and let that dry. Now that the chipping brown color has dried, we're going to go ahead and use a dark brown wash and randomly put that all over it as well there. In this particular case, I'm just using Tamiya's panel liner in brown. It's a enamel-based paint and works really good for this. So we're just going to apply it kind of haphazardly on that. Then taking a brush that we used that for the other one, kind of beat up and old, we're going to use a color called Track Rust, and we're going to lightly blot that onto the wet panel liner randomly. You can even take a touch of a lighter rust color if you want and kind of blend it together. It's not going to really create a rust color at this effect because we're putting it on wet mixed with the other one, and it'll just kind of lighten down some of the brown. So we just kind of want to lightly blot all of this all over, once again, very randomly, so no area looks like it's too strong. And for the regular tracks, the last thing we can do right now is take some light sienna and kind of blot that all over onto this as well. And push it into the enamel panel liner so it'll adhere very well to it. And now it's going to look a certain way right now because it hasn't dried yet. In fact, we'll get a nice close-up on here. Looks pretty decently like the way it is right now, but once it dries, I'll come back in about 10 minutes and show you what it looks like. And we can put that on just in some random areas. You can put it on kind of heavy in some areas because we're going to use a little enamel thinner to kind of just blend it in. So just pick a few spots that you want it to be on. Just like that. And then taking our brush dipped in some enamel thinner, just kind of tap it on there and let it just kind of blend into itself. And we're going to let that dry, and when it comes back, it'll have dried into something that looks just like this. Now let's create some mud effect, and I'm going to start off by using the Ammo by MIG acrylic mud for dioramas. We're using arid dry ground, and the reason I'm using this is we want to create a little thicker area of mud as a good base. It's very, very thick, strong stuff, and we're just going to apply it to the lower portion of the tank here, and it's going to create a good base of thick, chunky mud that sometimes it's hard to duplicate with some of the other lighter muds, especially in 16 scale. We want to use a little water as we go around here because that'll thin it out. This is acrylic mud. And kind of just blot it into all the areas where you'd expect mud to accumulate. And this is just going to be the first layer. This is the light dried up mud. And then we will go back around and start adding some other colors as soon as we finish this off. So I will go ahead and put a layer of this across the bottom. Now that I've got a layer on of the lighter color, we're going to create a little bit of dark mud mixed in, blended the two together before they completely dry, just so we don't have such a uniform color as our base. And now that we've got a layer of mud across the bottom, you're going to take some grass fibers from static grass, and we want to just sprinkle those on over all of these areas. We want to create the effect that grass has been ground up in this mud. Then using our same stick, our old paintbrush, kind of push those grass fibers into the mud. Once the acrylic stuff begins to dry, we can start to flick off some of the excess where it's a little thick and we don't want it that thick. Now that we've let the acrylic product dry, we can take a little enamel product, and here we're just using some regular brown panel wash and just making some shadows on the mud. Not too crazy, but just enough to start to break it up a little bit. Now let's add some splashes. I'm going to use Ammo by Meg's Turn Dirt. And the way we're going to apply this, we're going to dip an old brush inside of it, just like this. And then we're going to use our airbrush, and with a little and we can, in some of the bigger splashes of mud, we can kind of blend in and even lightly. And we can use our foam sponge to blot off any of the excess, but still leave a decent amount behind. Now this is going to be a layering process. We're going to go back and forth and do the same thing a couple of times using the splash method, and then streaking some of it and blending it back in. And finally, after we've done a bunch of different coats on it, we'll have basically something that looks like this right here. This is the side that I've done in advance. This is all dry. The only other thing I did after I did all that is I took our mud effect and lightly just dry brushed a little bit of it right on the very high spots to create some really, really light looking dried up mud on it there. And we've created a nice base that we can now put all of our wheels and tracks over, hide up some of it right there, but it really pops out once you see it behind the road wheels and the tracks. And finally, now that we have the road wheels and drive sprocket stuff on, I'm taking a little rust wash, very, very watered down, and just putting a couple of little puddles and allowing it to drip down on the inside in there. And then what we'll do is we'll take a little bit of a sponge, kind of blend it in there, but just to give us some darkish reddish brown coloring inside there. I think it adds a nice dirty effect inside. Not necessarily rust, it can just be, you know, the type of soil and mixed with mud and grime and oil and grease, whatever it is in there, but it adds a nice little effect to it there. And just a little bit. And now I want to brush a little enamel thinner onto the areas that we had weathered earlier. And using a variety of different colors, starting off with a streaking grime, we'll add a few little dots, a couple little random dot areas. We'll also add a streaking rust effect, which is kind of a dark brownish color. And then just tapping it with some thinner, you get the paint to run down the side here and create a natural looking drip mark. And you can use quite a few different colors here. I mean, we'll use some Starship Wash, which is kind of like a dark brown on these areas. Dipping a little bit on there and then just tapping it with the enamel thinner, and you can see it just kind of spreads it all out. Just creates a dirty, grimy effect. And finally, if you want, and here is our completed model. All painted up, weathered and muddied up. And what we'll do now is we'll give you a little 360. And now let's take a little bit more of a top-down view. As you can see, we've got the tools over on this side, including the red fire extinguisher. I know some of you are probably going to say, oh, it's not supposed to be a red fire extinguisher. But a couple years ago, when I was at the German Tank Museum, they told me that they were red on the vehicles from like 42 on, I believe. And before that, they were like kind of a gray color. And as we come around the other side here, you can see we've got all the extra track on top. We've also installed all of the glass, like in the periscopes and any of the other glass that's on there. I did do, as you come around the side here, you'll see a little bit of chipping that I've done inside the fighting compartment. And that is because after I get done talking and showing you the top here, we will be putting, or showing, I should say, showing you some other cool accessories that I plan to be adding on to this. And that is why I also did not put the barrel cleaner. I put the brackets back there, but did not install the barrel cleaner yet. And as soon as I'm done showing you this here, you'll understand completely on it there. So painting this, I thought was a lot of fun. Doing it in the 16 scale, I thought it's even actually easier doing it in 16 scale than it is in 35th scale, because a lot of times when you're doing the splashes and stuff, they're a little bit more realistic because, you know, you're doing it that way, and it kind of fits. And very nice kit. You know, the fit was incredible on this one and had a great time. So now that you've seen it all painted up, I want to show you guys a few accessories that'll be being released very soon. Okay, we're going to take a quick look at 3 plastic kits that can be added onto the StuG. And first of all, we have two 16 scale figure sets, or figures I should say. Just one. There's one figure in each box. These are from Classy Hobby. If you're not familiar with Classy Hobby, we just got a giant restock of it ourselves. That's how I was able to get a hold of these. But they make two 16 scale Luke's kits, which is basically a Panzer II that's been modified, and they also have two 16 scale Stuart kits, the American Stuart tank. And with that, they have the two figures, so we could easily put those inside the Sturmgeschütz. Or we also have the jerry can and 200-liter fuel drum set. These would definitely be a nice add-on feature to add on to the back of the StuG. And I plan on adding more and more of this stuff onto the back of it very, very soon, but I thought I would show you at least these plastic kits first. And this is what I'm super excited to share with you guys. These are 4 brand new sets of German 16 scale accessories from our friends over at Value Gear. I've been talking with Steve, the owner of Value Gear, for the last couple of weeks about doing these sets specifically designed for the StuG, but obviously a lot of these tarps and bags and stuff can be used on anything 16 scale, but I'm really excited to show you these. So there are 4 sets. The very first thing is basically a giant resin plug that will fit on the back, and this has got one of the 50-gallon drums and a couple ammo crates as well as a tarp over it. And this is kind of like a base that if you can get this one separately if you want to, and then you can stack stuff all around it, but it'll fit right on top of the back of the vehicle, and I'll show you that in 1 minute. And then we're going to pull open some of these and show you some of the accessories that are inside here. And here he is. Here's the first set mounted into place on the back of the Sturmgeschütz. As you can see here, it just fits right in there. The tarp, everything on it. You do have to go ahead and remove the barrel cleaner as well as the track bar in the back there. So if you do decide you want to do this one right here, you do have to leave those off, and then you can stack it on. But you can also use all the other accessory kits separately, which I'm going to show you right now on the built-up one. Okay, we're going to open up one of the sets here. Randomly just grabbed one of them, and we're going to dump out all the contents, and I'll show you what actually comes in. Just for your benefit, this is going to be GTB 03. This is the 3rd set in the line, and I want to just show you some of the cool accessories. So to start off with, we've got what appears to be like a tarp all folded up with an MP40 stick grenade and a couple of ammo pouches on top of some wooden like crate top. And we also have some open boxes with some like hammers and helmets, track pins, rope. Really cool looking rolled up, like, I don't know if this is like a tarp, a bedroll, whatever it is type thing, but that would look really good on the back. Then we've got all kinds of extra open boxes with canteens inside, the rope on there. And like I said, this is just one. Each one of these sets is completely different, or mostly different. Like the ammo boxes, these were designed in mind with the dimensions of the 75mm ammunition that would go for the Sturmgeschütz. So this is the box that you get. Each one of these sets has 2 of these automatically inside of it. They have the little clasps on the side there. Very, very nicely done. Here's like an extra one with another helmet to throw on there, some rope, all kinds of stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take this stuff and show you this set just piled up on the back, how it would look. Now, obviously, we have to paint these up, but just to give you an idea how we could stack all this kind of stuff up, you could do all kinds of things like this. You could have the boxes on the back here. Drop all the, and of course, you tie it all down. This is so cool right here. That you'd see this like up near the open hatches, because a lot of times I've seen a lot of video where the driver or the commander would have the MP40 sitting up there, and they would just literally pull the MP40 out, start shooting out of the top there if they didn't have the 34 ready to go. So you can see you've got all kinds of stuff like this that you can just stack up all around it, rope it down. You know, you could put another set of tracks through the back here. Sometimes they would connect a whole set from wheel to wheel to store stuff back in here. Just all kinds of cool things. And you still have all these leftover parts too. So all kinds of cool things you can do with it. And that's just one set. So you can imagine how this will look once this is painted up. and strapped onto the vehicle there. Now, all 4 of those sets are, these are the final ones. He aftermarket parts ready to go. Well, painting and weathering the Sturmgeschütz in 16 scale, it was a blast. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you as always for watching, and please stay tuned because we have many more videos coming.